Philippine Times.
For the headlines.
The Commission on Elections and Bank on Wednesday proclaimed the winning senators in the May 13 polls.
At least 6 people were killed as Indonesia's capital erupted in violence on Wednesday when police clashed with protesters opposed to the re-election of President Joko Widodo.
British Prime Minister Theresa May's final bid to salvage her Euro divorce deal appears doomed as pro-Brexit conservatives and opposition MPs rejected her attempts at a compromise to end months of deadlock.
And the Iglesia Ni Cristo holds an aid to humanity in Winnipeg. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Orozco.
And now to the news. The Commission on Elections and Bank on Wednesday has proclaimed the winning senators in the May 13 polls. Take a look. They will serve as senators for 6 years until June 30, 2025. Now, this is composed of the electionists Nancy Binay,
The personal photographers of Senator-elect Nancy Binay, you may approach.
former Senator Bong Revilla, Aquilino Coco Pimentel III, former presidential political advisor Francis Tolentino,
Right, thank you so much.
Ilocos Norte Governor Amy Marcos, former Senator Lito Lapid, re-electionist Senator Sani Angara, ex-Police Chief Bato de la Rosa, Representative Pia Cayetano, former Presidential Aide Bongo, Senator Grace Poe, re-electionist Senator Cynthia Villar. All were able to personally claim their certificates of proclamation from the members of the COMELEC sitting as National Board of Canvassers. The proclamation by the National Board of Canvassers of the winning senatorial candidates was led by COMELEC Chairman Sheriff Abbas. With their election, the next Senate is expected to be dominated by administration allies following the shutout of all Ocho Derecho Senate bets in the May 13 polls. The next Senate is expected to have only 4 sitting opposition senators: Antonio Trillanes IV, Franklin Drilon, Kiko Pangilinan, and Laila De Lima.
Higit sa lahat, salamat sa bawat Pilipino sa inyong pasensya at pag-intindi, sa inyong paghintay at pagbantay sa resulta ng ating halalan. Thank you for continuing to trust our electoral process and for upholding our democracy.
For the endorsement and support, President Rodrigo Duterte and his party, PDP Laban, for including us as guest senatorial candidates. Of course, thank you also to Mayor Inday Sara Duterte for her untiring support to us and the entire slate of pugpong ng pagbabago during the campaign. Thank you po sa kanilang mag-ama. Palakpakan po natin sila.
Na kahit na walang partido, independent, ay nakaraos din tayo. Maraming salamat at syempre kay yung asawa mo at ang nanay ko, kaya at yung anak ko, kaya talagang meaningful sa akin.
Alam niyo, napakadami na ng pinagdaanan namin. Hindi na namin inaalala yung vindication. So lahat ng mga basher, mga hater, yung mga galit sa amin, huwag na kayong matakot sa akin kasi hindi naman ako mapakiganti. Gagawa lang tayo ng trabaho. Maraming salamat po.
The Senate, wala naman talagang super smooth sailing dyan dahil sa dami ng pananaw, magkaibang pananaw. So palagay ko magkakaroon ng debate sa lahat ng bills.
Pagsisikapin ko talaga na sana magkaroon ng mas balansing pananaw din ng Senado. bilang isang independent candidate. Ganun ang aking tatahakin. Kung makakatulong sa administrasyon, tutulungan natin. Pero sa tingin ko panahon na rin na pag meron din tayong mga nakikita na maaari nating baguhin ay magsalita.
At least 6 people were killed as Indonesia's capital erupted in violence on Wednesday when police in riot gear clashed with protesters opposed to President Joko Widodo's re-election. Dozens were arrested and parts of Jakarta were littered with debris and burnt-out cars as the violence triggered security advisories from the U.S. and Australian embassies. Authorities also restricted access to some social media in a bid to stop the spreading of rumors and fake news. National Police Chief Tito Carnavian said 6 people have died, but denied authorities had fired live rounds on the crowd and called for calm. The violence came after Indonesia's Election Commission on Tuesday confirmed Widodo, 57, had beaten retired military General Prabowo Subianto for the presidency in a poll held on April 17. Prabowo had 44%. He says he plans to contest the election results in court. Prabowo took the same action when he lost to Joko 5 years ago. The country's election watchdog says it has found no evidence of vote rigging. The violence is not showing any signs of abating, so the US, UK, and Japan have all issued travel advisories that are warning their citizens to stay away from areas with protests.
Meanwhile, Indonesia's incumbent presidential candidate Joko Widodo makes a victory speech in a dense residential area of Jakarta after the surprise early announcement of official election results handed him another term as leader of the world's third biggest democracy.
Pemilu demi pemilu telah kita lalui dengan penuh kedewasaan. Pemilu yang sekarang ini, saya meyakini insya Allah akan bisa kita lalui dengan damai sesuai dengan amanat konstitusi yang kita miliki.
The soft-spoken Widodo, who pointed to his efforts to boost Southeast Asia's biggest economy with a huge infrastructure push, stood in stark contrast to fiery nationalist Subianto, a strongman who quoted Islamic headliners and promised a boost to military and defense spending. A record 254,000 candidates ran for public office in Indonesia's elections, from the presidency and parliamentary seats to local positions. The first time all were held on the same day. Some 85.6 million votes were cast in favor of Widodo out of about 154 million.
To other news now, a French-Spanish nun has been brutally murdered in a village in the Central African Republic where she taught sewing to young girls, according to the Vatican on Wednesday. The 77-year-old was found beheaded early Monday, according to the Vatican News website, while a bishop in a CAR said her throat had been slit. Vatican News said her attackers broke into her room on the night between Sunday and Monday and then took her to the center she was running for the young girls, where they beheaded her. According to a local member of the parliament, the murder could be linked to trafficking in human organs, the site adds. A spokesman for the Diocese of Burgos in Spain told AFP a bishop in the Central African Republic had described the state of the nun's body. They cut her neck to the point of killing her, but they didn't cut off her head completely.
Sri Lanka's president extended on Wednesday by a further month the state of emergency imposed immediately after the Easter Sunday Islamist bombings that killed 258 people. Maithripala Sirisena issued a proclamation saying that the emergency, which gives sweeping powers to security forces to arrest and detain suspects for long periods of time, would continue for another 30 days, citing public security. Sri Lanka initially imposed the emergency to crack down on local jihadists, blamed for the April 21 bombings that targeted 3 churches and 3 luxury hotels. 3 weeks after the suicide bombings, anti-Muslim riots broke out in a province north of the capital in a backlash against the attacks. At least 1 Muslim man was killed and hundreds of Muslim-owned shops and homes were destroyed. Several mosques were also vandalized. The police and the military say they have arrested scores of suspects, both in connection with the bombings and over what appeared to be organized violence against the Muslim minority.
Meantime, the U.S. defense chief said President Donald Trump's administration was seeking to deter Iran but not outstart a war after he briefed members of Congress.
To prevent Iranian miscalculation. Deterrent attacks based on our reposturing of assets, deterrent attacks against American forces. Our biggest focus at this point is to prevent Iranian miscalculation. We do not want the situation to escalate. This is about deterrence, not about war. We're not about going to war.
U.S. State Secretary Pompeo said that he and Shanahan placed Iranian actions within the context of 40 years of terrorist activity since the 1979 Islamic Revolution replaced the pro-Western Shah with a staunchly anti-U.S. clerical regime.
First, we shared with both the House and the Senate our strategic campaign, the effort to push back against Iran's malign activity, 40 years of terrorist activity. And so we talked to them about that. We tried to place that, or place the recent intelligence in context of that 40 years of history. And we walked through our efforts and our ultimate objective over the past days, which has been to deter Iran.
The briefing did not satisfy many of the Democrats who say that the heightened tensions are the result of President Donald Trump's administration's aggressive stance and shunning of diplomacy.
I believe that a war with Iran would be an absolute disaster, far worse than the war with Iraq. I worry very much that intentionally or unintentionally we can create a situation in which a war will take place.
To other news now, Ambassador Kim Song of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea said the United States has committed unlawful and outrageous acts by seizing a North Korean flag cargo ship. Take a listen.
The United States has committed unlawful and outrageous acts of dispossessing our cargo ship Wise Honest by forcibly taking it to the American Samoa under the pretext of unilateral sanctions and violation of its domestic law. We are condemning in strongest terms this act of dispossessing of our cargo ship, because this incident is early product of extreme hostile policy of the United States against DPRK. Last week, I sent the letters to the Secretary General in order to inform our principal positions and I requested him to take the necessary measures as the way of contributing the stability in Korean Peninsula. Also, I requested him to circulate my letter as official document of current session of General Assembly. So now my country carefully watch every move of the United States hereafter.
The United States said on May 9 that it seized the ship because it was carrying coal in violation of UN sanctions. A first-of-its-kind enforcement action that came amid a tense moment in relations with North Korea. The U.S. announcement of the seizure of the Wise Honest came hours after North Korea fired 2 suspected short-range missiles toward the sea, the second weapons launch in 5 days, and a possible signal that stalled talks over its nuclear weapons program are in trouble.
Therefore, United States should deliberate and think over the consequence of its outrageous acts might have on the future development. Also, United States must return our cargo ship without delay.
UN humanitarians have said that they are still seeking an agreement with Houthi opposition fighters in Yemen to stop diverting desperately needed aid to millions of people. Most of the 12 million people the World Food Program wants to reach are in Houthi-controlled areas, according to spokesperson Hervé Verheugen.
WFP sincerely hope that it can reach agreement with the authorities in Houthi areas of Yemen to avoid the suspension, as the need of 12 million people who depend on our assistance are, of course, a priority. The food can arrive easily in the country. The food is in the country. What we need now is access. What we need now is operational independence, access to the most vulnerable, and the start of a biometric registration program. That's something very important. What we say now is that all this needs to stop. We are here to save 12 million people, many of them children and women, to save them from famine. I mean, everybody should work together, and the interest and the first interest of everybody today should be the civilian population. As of today, 87 of these WFP contracted trucks carrying WFP food, but also agricultural supplies from FAO, remain in custody across different security and customs checkpoints across Ibd and Baida governorate.
WFP wants greater freedom of movement inside the war-torn country and a biometric aid registration program in Houthi-controlled areas to match what is happening in government-held zones. On Monday, the agency said that its greatest challenge came not from the guns, but instead from some obstructive and uncooperative Houthi rebel leaders. In an update to journalists in Geneva, Mr. Verheugen said that 87 aid trucks remain blocked across different security and customs checkpoints in IBD and Al-Baida governorates.
Since March 2015 up to the 2 of May, we have 7,169 killed, 7,169, and 11,392. So 11,392 injured.
China says the move by Donald Trump's administration to block U.S. technology sales to Huawei is a way to surprise foreign companies. Meanwhile, Shanghai residents expressed mixed feelings about the consequences of the ban and how they could impact their lives.
首先，它不能再用安卓系统了，这可能是一个最大的影响。但实际上，我觉得我们国内研发新的手机系统也很快，这可能是短期内会受到一些使用体验上的影响，长期我觉得应该不会。
美国有它的出发点的考虑，这个的话也是一个可以理解的事情啊。你比如说，举个例子，你反过来说， 你说美国制裁华为，对吧？那中国不让 Facebook 去在中国登陆，不是也是一样的事情吗？我觉得这都是国家利益优先的事情，完全可以互相理解的。
这个其实本质来讲，就是中国在崛起当中的话，就是第二名的国家跟第一名的国家这种利益上面的一种博弈。
China reiterated its opposition to the U.S.'s abuse of state power. In response to reports, Washington is considering banning certain Chinese surveillance firms, including Hangzhou, HIK Vision Digital Technology, and Zhejiang Dahua Technology from buying U.S. components.
最近我们已经一再表明过，中方对于美国滥用国家力量。肆意的抹黑和打压其他国家企业，包括中国企业，这样的一些做法，我们已经一再表明了我们的反对的立场。中方而言，我们一向要求中国企业，在遵循市场规律和国际规则的基础上，在其他国家开展投资经营的活动。同时，我们也一直要求，其他国家能够给予中国企业公平、非歧视的待遇。
The move over alleged human rights abuses would make it harder for Hangzhou HIK Vision Digital Technology and Zhejiang Dahua Technology to access the U.S. market and suppliers. Bloomberg News cited people familiar with the matter as saying the action, first reported by the New York Times, would also likely exacerbate a worsening row with Beijing after President Trump stopped U.S. firms from selling to Huawei and barred it from the U.S. market. Huawei has been given a 90-day reprieve.
British Prime Minister Theresa May's final bid to salvage her EU divorce deal appeared doomed on Wednesday as pro-Brexit conservatives and opposition MPs rejected her attempts at a compromise to end months of deadlock. The beleaguered leader is set to face a torrid session at Prime Minister's questions in Parliament on the eve of European elections that Britain had not even expected to take part in 3 years after the Brexit referendum. The poll could see the vote of the two main parties decimated. May vowed Tuesday to give lawmakers a vote on holding a public referendum on Brexit if they approve her unpopular withdrawal agreement in a series of votes starting in early June.
Although it's not possible for those to replace the backstop in the withdrawal agreement, we can start the work now to ensure they are a viable alternative. So as part of the new Brexit deal, we will place the government under a legal obligation to seek to conclude alternative arrangements by December 2020, so that we can avoid any need for the backstop coming into force. So to those MPs who want a second referendum to confirm the deal, you need a deal and therefore a withdrawal agreement bill to make it happen. So let it have its second reading and then make your case to Parliament.
May's offer comes as Britain votes in EU elections Thursday, with the two main parties trailing behind the Brexit Party and the pro-EU Liberal Democrats, according to polls. The latest YouGov survey showed Eurosceptic populist Nigel Farage's new Brexit Party claiming 37% of votes, with Labour in third on 19% and the Tories lagging in fifth place with just 7%.
If we win big on Thursday, we will kill off any prospect of Parliament forcing a second referendum upon us, because they know they won't lose. We win big on Thursday. There are a couple of really nice little bonuses that will be attached. The first is we will quickly get rid of the worst, most duplicitous, and I still disagree with Anne Widdecombe. She's not the worst Prime Minister since Anthony Eden. She's the worst Prime Minister in the history of our nation.
Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz will face a no-confidence vote in Parliament next week. The Speaker of the lower house said Tuesday as Kurz grapples with fallout from a scandal that toppled his coalition with the far-right party. Austria's government was rocked last week after German media published a hidden camera video showing then far-right Freedom Party leader Heinz Christian Strache appearing to offer public contracts to a fake Russian backer in return for election campaign help. The explosive video, filmed in a luxury villa on the Spanish island of Ibiza in July 2017, led Strache to resignation as Vice Chancellor on Saturday and to Kurz ending the 18-month-old coalition, which many on Europe's right had touted as a model. Kurz announced a rush for snap elections expected in September, hoping to escape damage from the affairs by asking Austrians to strengthen the hand of his center-right People's Party.
Zu bestellen. All das führt meiner Meinung nach zu einer Gemengelage, wo es eigentlich schlüssig gewesen wäre, wenn, so wie Heinz-Christian Strache auch, durch seinen Rücktritt der Innenminister durch einen Rückzug aus seiner Funktion sichergestellt hätte, dass hier ganz entscheidend, ich werde alles tun, gemeinsam mit dem Bundespräsidenten, um sicherzustellen, dass es in den nächsten Monaten Stabilität gibt. Und ich ersuche auch die Oppositionsparteien hier ihren Beitrag zu leisten. Wir brauchen stabile Verhältnisse in der Republik Österreich und insbesondere auch in den nächsten Monaten, um auf europäischer Ebene mitgestalten zu können.
Die Chance gibt über diese Zeitung.
The no-confidence vote will be passed if a majority of lawmakers support the motion. The Freedom Party is increasingly at odds with Kurz. If the party and the largest opposition Social Democratic Party support the motion, the Chancellor will have to resign. The scandal surfaced days before the European Parliament elections that will be held from Thursday to Sunday. Analysts say the political turmoil in Austria may affect the election results of far-right and right-wing parties in other European countries.
In other news, Hollywood star Arnold Schwarzenegger was attacked on Saturday by a man who kicked him in the back at a sports event in South Africa that the action hero was hosting. Take a look. The bodybuilder and former politician was chatting with fans at the Sandton Convention Center in Johannesburg when a man took a flying leap and then kicked him high in the back. Schwarzenegger was in Johannesburg for the annual Arnold Classic Africa and International Multi-Sports Festival.
So I have no idea how this guy was envisioning that he would get a Lamborghini by kicking me in the back. It just there's no pencil out. So obviously the guy was on some special South African drug. So whatever it was, but I'm actually very happy because today no one drop kicked me as I was walking through the auditorium, so it was really good. So things are improving.
As you can see here, a man is seen attacking the former governor of California from the back with a flying kick. The attacker hits the floor as the 71-year-old Schwarzenegger stumbles momentarily after contact. Arnold had just finished filming a girl jump roping on his phone at the event when he turned around and he was forcefully kicked in his back, a move that caught him off guard and pushed him forward among bystanders. A security guard can be seen immediately tackling the man who kicked him to the ground in the video as onlookers move around and then gasp over the incident. It's not clear why the man attacked Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger then took to social media to reassure fans that there was nothing to worry about. Organizers of the festival also confirmed that the former movie star was fine and he would not lay any charges against his attacker.
What's this?
business news, this is Cesar Vallejos. Malacanang is awaiting recommendations from the Department of National Defense and the National Security Advisor following Google's move to suspend some business with Huawei amid the U.S.-China trade war. Telecommunication firms in the country had assured Huawei users on Monday that the ban will not affect their network services. I suppose that the National Security Advisor and the Department of National Defense are studying the matter, given that it is brought to the public knowledge on certain apprehensions relative to the use of Huawei, said presidential spokesman and chief presidential legal counsel Salvador Panelo in a briefing on Tuesday. The president will be waiting for whatever recommendation they have on that, he also said. Reports have said that existing Huawei smartphone users will be able to use and download updates provided by Google, but future versions of Huawei smartphones that run on Android may lose access to Google's popular services such as Google Play Store, Gmail, and YouTube apps. Huawei founder Ren Zhengfei on Tuesday said the company was discussing with Google how to deal with the U.S. ban on companies selling or transferring U.S. technology to Huawei. The talks come after the U.S. internet giant, whose Android mobile operating system powers most of the world's smartphones, said this week it was beginning to cut ties with Huawei in light of the ban. Last week, U.S. President Donald Trump
但是谷歌呢，还是一个非常好的公司，谷歌也在想办法，我们也在想办法，这不就是救济措施吗？在讨论救济的措施。我非常感谢美国公司，就这30年来说，美国公司伴随着我们公司成长，他们做出了很多无私的贡献，对不对？他教明白了我们怎么去走路。
Last week, U.S. President Donald Trump declared a national emergency that enabled him to blacklist companies seen as an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States, a move analysts said was clearly aimed at Huawei. At the same time, the U.S. Commerce Department announced an effective ban on U.S. companies selling or transferring technology to Huawei. Ren insisted the move would have no effect.
在最先进的领域不会有影响，就是至少5G 是绝对不会影响，而不仅不影响，事实上别人2、3年也不会来追得上我们的。
Two of Japan's top mobile phone carriers said Wednesday they will delay releasing new handsets made by Huawei after a U.S. ban on American companies selling technology to the Chinese tech giant. KDDI and SoftBank Corporation, the country's number 2 and number 3 carriers respectively, said the decision was taken to give them time to assess the impact of the U.S. ban. The country's biggest carrier, NTT Docomo, also announced it was suspending pre-orders for a new Huawei handset, but stopped short of halting the release itself. SoftBank had been due to release a Huawei-made smartphone on Friday, but halted the release because we are currently trying to confirm if our customers will be able to use the equipment with a sense of safety, company spokesman Hiroyuki Mizukami told AFP. We still don't know when we will be able to start selling, he said, adding the Japanese carrier is concerned about everything linked to the U.S. ban. Citing national security, U.S. President Donald Trump has effectively banned U.S. companies from supplying Huawei and affiliates with the critical components that have helped it grow into the world's largest supplier of telecom networking equipment and second biggest smartphone maker. British telecoms giant EE will this month become the first operator in the country to launch a 5G network, but will do so without Huawei technology as originally planned, it said on Wednesday. EE had announced earlier that it would bring Huawei's first 5G phone, the Huawei Mate 20X 5G, to Britain, but the Chinese giant's involvement in the UK's telecoms industry has become politically controversial. EE Chief Executive Mark Alera said the company had paused the launch of Huawei's 5G phones until we get the information and confidence and the long-term security that our customers are going to be supported. The decision comes in the midst of a trade war between the United States and China. BT-owned EE on Wednesday said it would begin the rollout of the new high-speed 5G mobile network on May 30, initially in 6 cities: London, Cardiff, Belfast, Edinburgh, Birmingham, and Manchester. It said it planned to reach 1,500 sites by the end of 2019, with expansion into the cities of Bristol, Coventry, Glasgow, Hull, Leeds, Leicester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Nottingham, and Sheffield. China's 3 biggest airlines have filed claims seeking compensation from Boeing over the grounding and delayed delivery of 737 MAX 8 aircraft following 2 deadly crashes, Chinese state media reported on Wednesday. The reports in various state-run media that China Southern Airlines, China Eastern Airlines, and Air China would seek payouts from the American aerospace giant come against the backdrop of an escalating U.S.-China trade war. On March 11, China became the first country to order its airlines to ground the 737 MAX as a result of the 2 tragedies. The day before, an Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX crashed minutes after takeoff from Addis Ababa, killing all 157 people on board, including 8 from China. That followed the October crash of a Lion Air 737 MAX, which went down shortly after takeoff from Jakarta, killing all 189 people on board. Xinhua had reported that grounding Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes had resulted in great losses for the company, China Eastern, and the losses are still expanding. China Southern is Asia's largest carrier by fleet size. China Eastern is the country's number 2, while Air China is the state flag carrier. There was no immediate indication that the move was related to the increasingly bitter trade conflict. Trump launched the trade war last year to extract profound economic reforms from Beijing, accusing China of seeking to forge global industrial dominance through massive state intervention in markets and the theft of U.S. technology. The 2 sides have exchanged tariffs on more than $360 billion in two-way trade. Japan's trade surplus dropped by around 90% in April, official data showed Wednesday, with exports affected by a slowdown in China's economy as it wages a trade war with Washington. Meanwhile, Japan's politically sensitive trade surplus with the United States grew 17.7% in April from a year earlier, the data showed, days before U.S. President arrives on a state visit. Japan's overall trade surplus plummeted by 90.3% to 60.4 billion yen. The decrease, sharply lower than market expectations, was chiefly due to falls in exports of chip-related products to China, the finance ministry data showed. The latest figures come ahead of Trump's visit to Japan this weekend for meetings with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. They are expected to focus on issues including trade. Trump has frequently complained that Japan has an unfair advantage in bilateral trade and is seeking to negotiate a new trade agreement with Tokyo. Last week, Trump announced a 6-month delay in imposing steep tariffs on auto imports, seeking to pressure Japan and Europe into bargaining concessions on trade. Manila has one of the most conducive startup ecosystems in the world, as it ranked high in multiple categories of a report assessing the environment for new enterprises. Along with Taipei, Busan, Calgary, and Frankfurt, Manila was listed as one of the top activation phase ecosystems in the world, according to Startup Genome's 2019 Global Startup Ecosystem Report. The Philippine capital placed 10th in the global competition for bang for buck. It ranked 5th in the activation ecosystem for connectedness as well as in Exit Growth Index. Moreover, Manila was 6th across the world in Output Growth Index and 9th in Funding Growth Index. The assessment also put the city's financial technology or fintech industry in the spotlight, as it comprised 15% of all startups. According to the report, Manila's fintech transaction value last year amounted to about $5.7 billion and is projected to hit $10.5 billion by 2022. The Bank for Buck badge is given to firms who are getting more value for the average funding amount startups will get in the ecosystems. With an average funding new enterprises get in this environment, a startup should be able to hire more software engineers for 1 year. Under the activation ecosystem for connectedness, Manila ranked 5th for the quality of relationship local investors, experts, and founders have. Exit Growth Index measures startup exits in the ecosystem from 2015 to 2016 and 2017 to 2018. Output Growth Index evaluates the total startup creation in the ecosystem through an annualized growth rate between 2014 and 2018. The Funding Growth Index assesses the index of growth in early-stage funding in startups from 2014 to 2015 and 2016 to 2017. The report took note of the $26 million raised last year by fintech lender First Circle. It also cited the acquisition of Coins.ph for $72 million and Voyager Innovations for $215 million as factors for Manila's good standing in the rankings. And that's it for Business News. This is Cesar Vallejos. I'm 1 with 25.
Welcome back. The risk of Ebola spreading in the Democratic Republic of the Congo remains very high, according to the head of the World Health Organization. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus' warning follows a recent spike in the number of infections owing to the virus in the unstable northeast of the country. Since January, there have been dozens of attacks on health facilities in North Kivu, and on April 19, 42-year-old Dr. Richard Valerie from Cameroon was killed in Butembo. Here's Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization.
Unless we unite to end this outbreak, we run the very risk that it will become more widespread and more expensive and more aggressive. So far, the outbreak has not spread outside 2 provinces in DRC. But I emphasize, so far, the risk of spread remains very high.
To date, WHO has vaccinated some 120,000 people against Ebola, which Tedros said was more than 97% effective, and 4 experimental treatments have been given to 800 patients. The outbreak has claimed more than 1,200 lives since it began last August.
Our EBC correspondent Kathleen May Pangan takes us to Winnipeg, where the Iglesia Ni Cristo recently conducted an Aid for Humanity event. Kathleen?
Winterpeg, Winnipeg, getaway to the west. That's how they call Winnipeg, Manitoba. But did you know that the recent child poverty report finds 27.4% of children here in Manitoba live in poverty? Because of this, for the second time, here in the Turtle Island Neighborhood Center, the Church of Christ through the FYM Foundation distributed thousands of gift bags and cash gifts as part of the church's aim to fight poverty.
3,000 packages for the community is amazing, right? So not a lot of people are doing what you guys are doing, so this is very special.
The district ministers from Canada led the first of the 6 AT Humanity that will be conducted in Canada, as also part of the church commemoration of Brother Felix Y. Manelo's 133rd birth anniversary. anniversary.
When you guys come, I get goosebumps. I'm like, yes! Like, I love when you guys come here. The first one, I unfortunately helped with all the planning process, but I wasn't here for the event, so this is my first one. The impact is mind-blowing. First of all, like, families and youth get to come together and come out and hang out. You guys are extremely friendly to everybody, make everyone feel welcoming.
Present also in the event is Member of Parliament Kevin Lamoureux. He expressed appreciation of the outreach program.
You know, Aid for Humanity, as it's been brought forward from the Church of Christ, has actually had a very positive impact on the community, because what it does is it brings something that the community really needs. Even I would argue more than the food that they receive, but rather it demonstrates that there are people that are out there that genuinely love them. So just keep up the work, keep up the hard work. That would be my message to Brother Eduardo. You know, you got a fantastic following, great organization through the Church of Christ, and I wish nothing but the best in the years ahead.
Reporting for EBC from Manitoba, I'm Kathleen Maypangan. I am one with EVM.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Don Orozca.
Thank you, Don, for joining us again.
Thank you, Don.
The pleasure is mine.
Okay. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we are one with 25.